The regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, and the Victorville Water District. I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mayor Cabrialos, if I may, there are 3 closed session items. 2 are existing litigation. The names and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. The 3rd is potential litigation, 1 for the Water District and 2 for the City Council. And to the extent there is reportable action, we will come out and report that action at the end of the closed session.
Very good.
Hey. I can't sit with this thing.
But I don't care. I'll tell you.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I lose track of. I would like to reconvene the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, Victorville Redevelopment Agency, and the Victorville Water District. We did have a closed session, and our city attorney will address that.
Correct, Mayor Cabrialos. So it's a closed session, 2 items for the City Council, 1 for the Water District. Those items are fully described on the agenda, and there is no reportable action with respect to any one of those 3 items.
Thank you. We'll now have the invocation, and that'll be Father Mark Lander of the Holy Innocents Catholic Church, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by our Police Chief, Cliff Reynolds.
During this season, people throughout the world celebrate light in a time of darkness. As we approach the winter solstice, when the nights are shorter and the days are colder, many rely on faith to remind them of a light that shines brighter than the stars or the sun. Whether you are celebrating the feast festival of lights or preparing for the birth of Christ, we rejoice together in the light of our Lord. There's a story of a little girl who was with her family being shown around a great cathedral. As the guide was explaining a historic tomb nearby, the girl was staring at a great stained glass window through which the sun was shining, bathing the floor in color. As the group was about to move on, she asked the guide in a shrill, clear voice, "Who are those people in the pretty window?" "Those are the saints," the man replied. That night, as she was preparing for bed, she told her mother, "I know who the saints are." "Do you, dear?" replied her mother. "Who are they?" "They're the people who let the light shine through." Perhaps we all know people in our lives who have let the light of God shine through in moments of darkness or anxiety. With faith in the light who scatters the darkness, I pray that all present here will be filled with the same light and be given the wisdom and right judgment to carry out their duties with kindness and generosity. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Next, we have a special presentation. That's our military banner. But before I do that, I would like to recognize that we have Mayor Peter Allen from Apple Valley with us tonight, as well as Mr. Frank Robinson, our city manager from Apple Valley. Welcome, gentlemen. Tonight we have David Parker, recently returned from Afghanistan, and we do have his banner for him. We've had this banner on our light poles since he was deployed to Afghanistan, and now we're glad he's back. We're very proud of his service. I would like to have him come forward and receive his banner. Let's hear it for the young soldier. Service. It's a pleasure for us and an honor to recognize your service. And we do that first when you get deployed. We, of course, have the banner flying from our light standards. And the custom is when you get back, we give you your banner. And hopefully, you'll keep it with you and you won't have to go back so we don't have to put it up again. That's our hope. And we hope that we have more of our young soldiers coming back so we can give them their banners. We have, 62 or 63? 72, and they're all from Victorville, serving in Afghanistan or Iraq. So we're very proud of your service. And before I give you the banner, I would like you to say a few words to our audience.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the banner and everyone who made that happen. We all appreciate it very much, especially overseas when we hear people are honoring us like this. It definitely helps us in times when, out in the middle of Afghanistan, especially, you got nothing, and sometimes supplies are even short. And when you know that people back home care about you enough, then it definitely helps you get to get through the rough times. So I just wanted to thank everyone for making that happen, and let you know that we may not have the time or resources to write and tell you guys that we really appreciate it, but we all really do. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. Thank you.
And the families here recognized, I'd like to recognize them and tell us who they are.
Yes, my mom, she came out here. Her name's Sally. And my sister came out. And also my grandfather is back there in the cowboy hat. He's got a friend of that there.
Thank you for your service. First item is our public comment item, and we do have several cards here. You are limited to 3 minutes, and some of them were not marked. I'm sure that some of them were for item number 3. If you are here for item number 3, and I call you, we will be addressing item number 3 later on. So if you're here for item number 3, and I call you, you can hold back until we get to item number 3. First one is Norm Miller.
Mayor, council members, and staff, I just wanted to do something a little different tonight. I was on the internet this afternoon, and I found an article on there that was talking about the new Boeing 787 aircraft that they put on the taxi strip, I guess today or yesterday. And a little side article on there is they were showing the 747 test engine or test plane for the engine for that new airplane, and it was in Victorville, California. So I think Victorville, California is going to be worldwide now. Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentleman you're walking by with the white hair about 6 rows back had no small part in that story either.
Next, we'll have El Cotillo. Oh, yes.
First of all, everything I say is my own opinion. One thing I can't understand is why you guys allowed the city of engineers to block off Asperia Road for Verizon, for FICO, for better reception and televisions during the Christmas holiday. I've seen traffic backed up all the way from Silica to Nisqually. I mean, what's wrong with you people? Are you asleep at the wheel? Another thing, the meeting they had at the $10 million clubhouse over there with them people from Newport Beach who's already got the city in a lot of trouble, and you keep dealing with them. I don't know. They invited Ryan McCreachin with them, with Terry and Mike. Ryan, they're trying to get you to triple up with them like the other guy did that you beat out. Don't fall for it. You're an honest man, and you're for the people, and please stay for the people, okay? I know you'll do it. Don't fall into their little scam. I know what they're doing. They're trying to get you 3 to vote where you beat everybody else out all the time. Don't fall for it. Mike, how come you didn't get a ticket when you went through a red light following a truck too close? If you were following a truck too close, you should have got a ticket for following too close and for going through the red light. If it was some guy making $10 an hour that had 5 kids at home, couldn't afford Christmas gifts, he would have got a ticket. Why didn't you get one? Can't answer, I know. I'm going to find out. And if the newspaper is here, I hope they'll print it, and so we can get an answer to that. You should have got a ticket. You guys are talking about putting in another new golf course with that new train thing going from here to Vegas. Why do you want another golf course in Victorville? You can't even pay for the one we got. We're paying for it. It's not paying for itself. People are paying $10 to play golf after 3 o'clock. Before 3 o'clock, they're paying $27. What are you going to do with that golf course? Sell it to developers? You'll have a riot if you ever do that. But I don't know why you're even considering building another golf course in this town, except for your ego. Please do not build another golf course here. We don't need it, because we'll end up paying the taxes on it. Ryan, please remember what I said. What I'm telling you is the truth.
Next, we have Gary Coblins.
Good evening. I'm here to speak in regard to sewer fees. Currently, we own a 232-unit senior apartment complex called High Desert Villas, and under the current ordinance, apartments pay the same fee as single-family dwellings, while they generate approximately 15% of the effluent of a single-family dwelling. And so we're asking the city to revisit their sewer ordinance and adjust accordingly so that apartments are charged a fair fee for what they're actually using, not subsidizing others. The city of Adelanto, in their recent sewer fee ordinance, also recognized this issue, and their ratio is 50% of the single-family fee for apartment units. In addition, we currently pay a fee for every apartment unit that we own, not every apartment that is occupied. Years ago, and I don't remember when the ordinance changed or whether it's just policy. Years ago, we paid a fee for actual units actually occupied, which reflects usage. Under the current ordinance, we're paying for a usage that we are not generating. So, for our particular, so we're asking that the ordinance also be revised so that there's a fee only for occupied units. In our example, we currently have over 40 units not occupied. At the current fee, not including the increase to come further down the road, that's over $1,000 a month that we're paying for units that aren't even occupied, not generating effluent. So we're being asked to pay a fee from revenues we're not even receiving. So this has placed a financial burden on us, and as you all know, there's a lot of financial burdens in town, but apartment owners have a lot of vacancies. We have a substantial vacancy factor, over 40 units, and starting this month, we will be paying our fee based on our units occupied, which we will provide you each month. So that's how we're going to pay our fee. So we're asking you to, I believe that this ordinance is being looked at, but I ask you to expeditiously review this. If you need any information from us, please feel free to call, and to adopt an ordinance whereby the apartments pay 50% of what a single-family resident pays, and you only pay a fee if a unit is actually occupied, as it used to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dean Sillett.
Good evening, Mayor Rudy and council members. Let me include the Chief of Police in my comments tonight. Brought a young lady with me that some of you know, my lady friend Helen, who is the proud recipient of 2 red light camera tickets in 3 weeks. She was on La Paz in front of the Salvation Army, directly in back of a a Shell gasoline truck which was towing a trailer. And number one, she couldn't see the light, but she's quite sure that as the gasoline truck went through the intersection and attempted to turn left or west onto 7th, couldn't make the turn because as he looked out the mirror, his trailer would have wiped out the first car in line on 7th going east. So he stopped in the middle of the intersection. He had no choice. The driver of that car would have had to back up. So the intersection was sort of, I use the word locked up in all directions. When the truck and trailer moved, Helen was in the middle of the intersection, ping, red light. She got the ticket, $446. She's unable to go to Commissioner Singer's court, so she paid it. 3 weeks later, she is on Hesperia Road, attempting to turn left on Bear Valley. You know, this time of the year, the sun is quite low, and due to her limited vision, she couldn't see the light, any color. Went through the intersection, the car in front of her did, she followed, got a second ticket, $446. That's not the worst of it. I told her she had to go to school in order to keep the insurance down. So she sent in a check for $54. The school was to be held at the Red Roof Inn. I took her there. We got there, there's a sign on the glass door, school's been canceled. We've called several times and that school doesn't operate anymore, but they kept her $54.
Gene, excuse me, you got 15 seconds? 15 seconds left out of your 3 minutes.
Thank you. My recommendation is that we make a serious look at these cameras, please. You've seen the letters in the paper. People are really angry. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Thank you, Gene. Next is Dorothy Miller.
Dorothy Miller, City of Victorville. I'm real proud of you guys, really, really proud. First thing, we were told no meetings unless they were here in City Hall. Oh, we don't do that. We go to the Grumpy Golfer and have a meeting on a Saturday. That's not supposed to be done. So why are we doing it? And you guys know who's the ones that did it. And they tried pulling somebody else in, but they knew it was a Brown Act problem. Okay, the power plant too. What's going on there? Did we sell it? Did we not sell it? We hear we did, but nothing's happening. Then the generators over at Foxborough. Oh, we're going to take them over and use them for the sewer treatment plant now. They weren't no good. They were supposed to have been sold. What happened? Everything just keeps going on and on and on. Need to go back to VITA. We need to put everything back to VITA, let VITA take care of it. Apple Valley is now taking care of the books because we got too many problems and too many problem people. I'd like these things answered in writing to me. In my opinion, Buck Johns should go. We've said this before, and it hasn't happened. Nothing happens when you say you're going to do something. It never happens. It's always brought up later and later and later. And Terry, you and Mike both should step down for what you did. That's absolutely ridiculous. And we can't get the VD5 in the city of Victorville, but you can get it for the train, you can get it for the airport, and we get nothing. And I think it really stinks. And I think you guys better step up to the plate and do the thing right for the people in this city, because the roads are horrible. I hit a truck hole over here on Armagosa this morning, and I mean, it was a good one. I'm lucky I didn't lose control of the car. But you guys have no money to fix any roads, to do anything, and I don't think it's right. Thank you.
Now go into the agendas. We have first the Library Board of Trustees, and we have no revisions, so we do have consent calendar.
Move for approval?
Second.
Next is the Logistics Rail Authority and also the Airport Authority, and Councilman Caldwell is the chair for those two authorities, and he'll do those agendas.
Thank you, Mayor Cabrales. On the Rail Authority, the only item is 3, the consent calendar.
Move for approval.
Second.
As to the Airport Authority, we also have the consent calendar, item 3.
Approval?
Second.
Item 4 is a request to approve the lease with the United States of America for land to be used by the 163rd Air Reconnaissance Wing.
Move for approval.
Second.
Mayor, that completes both the Rail and the Airport Authority
Thank you.
agendas.
We now have the Victorville Redevelopment Agency agenda, and we have no revisions. Consent calendar.
Approval?
Second. Mayor Cabrialis, on agenda item number 4, I'll need to abstain as Blue Star Property Management is a client of mine.
Item number 4 is a request to award a contract to Blue Star Property Management for property located at 15430 Culebra Road, and to allocate up to $260,000 in NSP monies for the apartment complex. This includes property management. And number 3, they're requesting to designate the Director of Economic Development to as the authorized signer for all related transaction documents.
I'll move approval.
Question?
Yeah. I know Keith isn't feeling well, but is there a timeline, Keith, that we think we'll have this completed as far as the renovation? Thank you.
Next is the Water District agenda. We have no revisions. Item number 3 is a public hearing, and the public hearing is called to hear arguments for or against the proposed introduction of ordinance number BWD 002 entitled An Ordinance of the Board of Directors of the Victorville Water District fixing rates, rules, and regulations for recycled water service within the district's jurisdiction. I will now call the public hearing open and would invite anyone to hear arguments for or against item number 3. Step up to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against item number 3? I will now close the public hearing.
For approval?
Second.
That would be introduction, is that correct? And wait for the reading?
Introduction, yeah.
You're right, introduction.
Item number 4 is the consent calendar.
Move for approval? Councilmember Almond, may I get a vote from you? Thank you.
Item number 5 is a request to approve change order recommendation from Benham DBA for the SELA Industrial Wastewater Treatment Plant in the net amount of $109,041.20.
Approval?
Second.
Item number 6 is a request to award a contract to Kelly's Underground Construction in the amount of $864,837 for construction of reclaimed water line to elevated tank, and determine this project is a municipal affair that does not have statewide significance and therefore is not subject to the state prevailing wage requirement.
Approval?
Second.
Item 7 is a request to reject bids received from Western Energy Systems and Cummins Power Generation for the generator package for the SELA Industrial Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Move for approval.
Second.
Next is the City Council agenda. We have no revisions. We do have revisions to the agenda.
These are additional comments on item number 3, the public hearing item.
Okay. We'll now go into item number 3, which is a public hearing item. A public hearing called to hear arguments for or against the proposed introduction of ordinance number 2253 entitled, an ordinance of the City of Victorville approving PLNO 900045 Desert Gateway Specific Plant, City of Victorville.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. After 3 years of planning, we're pleased to present tonight the Desert Gateway Specific Plan. This is a joint project between AECOM and the city. John Bridges and his team are here tonight representing AECOM, and as is project planner Chris Borchert, who I'll be turning the podium over to in a few minutes. But first, I'd like to take a look back just to remind us all how we got to this point today. Several years ago, actually starting in August of 2005, with the first general plan workshop, we held a series of public workshops of which we invited the public, Planning Commission, council members, and other significant parties throughout the high desert, including schools and other institutions, to join us in the general plan workshops for the city of Victorville. During this process, we discussed future growth and land use, circulation, issues west of Highway 395, and what came to be known as the Northern Triangle, which was the large area to the north, which had never really been adequately addressed, by the city previous to these workshops. As a result of these workshops, as you know, it led to the recent adoption of the general plan. With the general plan, as you can see, it covered a large area, including the current city boundaries, the existing sphere of influence, and potential sphere area toward the north of the city, including and also areas to the west of the city. During this process, as I stated, all of the agencies involved were notified and involved, given due public notice, and had a say in addressing certain policies that were being instituted, as well as land uses. The largest amount of land use changes was going to occur in the northern area, formerly, as I said, known as the Northern Triangle, and as of tonight, hopefully in the future called the Desert Gateway Specific Plan. At that time and through this process, we adopted a specific plan designation for the area in the north. And that is basically the large purple area you see on the map between the highway and the river. With that, at the time of the general plan adoption, we did have the land uses, the acreages of commercial, residential, et cetera, accountable for in the general plan. And therefore, the project before you tonight is covered by the general plan environmental impact report. As I said, these things kind of went hand in hand. The general plan workshops kind of pinpointed various areas in the community. Starting with the original general plan workshop, or the second workshop in November 2005, the citizens started to discuss what was known as the Northern Triangle, and as I stated, which in the future hopefully will be the Desert Gateway. And some of the feedback we received from them we followed up with in future meetings and community meetings, as well as development of this plan. And some of the community feedback obviously was there was a strong desire to develop a master plan for the Northern Triangle, or the northern boundaries and the northern sphere of the city. There was an interest in mixed use with higher density in the cores, in the downtown cores of this area, estate lots in the hillsides, gated communities, a large commercial center, golf course with driving range, and more hospitals, amongst other things. As we worked on the program, or on the plan itself, as I said, these two things were coming simultaneously. There were a couple of things that we realized. One was that this was the city's best opportunity to actually plan development within the existing city and our future. The second thing was that we could create a plan that worked regardless of the train or not. As I stated, these meetings started in early 2005. That was before TRED, before the train, before any of those things came into our lives. As planners, we're not banking on a train. What we're looking at is we're looking at good plan development. And throughout this process, we have focused on planning an area that works with or without the train, or the current developers, or interests, or parties that are interested or that we're involved in at this time. We were looking at the best and highest uses for the city and good land planning for the city of Victorville, and looking at what was best for the city. The second thing I'd like to state is this is a zoning plan. It is required by law. As stated, we have given a general plan designation of specific plan to the northern area a while back, yet we have no land use designations for that area. Because this took a while to develop, and we wanted to make sure we got it right before we brought it forward. I just want to remind everyone here that this is required by law. This should have come hand in hand with the designation when we adopted the general plan. However, we needed to work out a few fine points. But it is only a zoning plan. This is not a development plan. The last thing, and the best part, is that there are no costs associated with this project this evening. No cost borne to the city. We are proposing the development standards and design guidelines only. The rest is up to the private sector. Obviously, during the life of this plan, there will be change. Those are called amendments, which we deal with frequently. But the basic land patterns and street patterns and uses will be set down, as well as design guidelines, to ensure that in time there will be quality development in North Victorville. And now for the specifics of the plan, I'll turn this over to Assistant Director Chris Portrait.
Good evening. As members of the council and commission, you may remember sitting at those tables in those pictures and scribbling down your thoughts and ideas on the city of Victorville and what your vision of it might be in the future. Well, those thoughts and ideas or visions for the city are what helped form and create the land use plan for Desert Gateway. The location, just to set your bearings, is on the eastern boundary you have the Interstate 15 freeway, and on the west you have the Mojave River and also National Trails Highway. Towards the north, you have the city of Victorville existing boundary towards the light industrial corner there in the very western corner. But then you also have the city's existing sphere of influence and 2,000 acres, which aren't currently even in our sphere of influence, which we would propose for expansion and future addition and annexation into the city. Also in this area to the northwest, you have an area, the town of Oro Grande. Why do I bring that up? Because we sent public hearing notices out for this project, every property owner in the area plus every property owner within 300 feet. Well, in addition to the sphere expansion that Bill mentioned earlier, this project and thoughts of annexation got into the heads of those in Oro Grande. They showed up at the commission meeting, so I wanted to point that out for them. This project does not affect Oro Grande at all. It goes to our city boundary and our sphere of influence in that area. Also, you'll notice on the plan the curvilinear streets. These streets set up nodes and cores, neighborhoods in the plan. The largest, or the dark red one that you see in the very center, is the mixed-use town center. This would be the most extensive or intensive commercial area. This is just an example, which is similar in nature due to the mountain in the background, but this area would have commercial, convention centers, hotels, like I said, a lot of retail, high-end, and also potential mixed use with high-density residential as well. The other areas, the core of that mixed-use town center, is centered around the high-speed train, the Desert Express train to Las Vegas. This would be at the heart of the mixed-use town center at the current time. As Bill mentioned, is it necessary for the plan? No. If the train doesn't get built, there are a lot of other options that this mixed-use town center could turn into. It could be a college campus, an amusement park, or it could be the future Victor Valley Mall remember visions. You have to think 15, 20 years down the line when there's a lot more residents in the area. Also, in those cores are mixed-use village centers. These are smaller areas which are related to more neighborhood type of uses. The commercial, the core is the neighborhood commercial, and then residential emanates out in decreasing densities from that point. As you see in the pictures, you have some examples of the mixed-use area, the residential, and here the golf course. As the speaker mentioned earlier, and you might have read in the paper as well, not the city's golf course, not at all. This is just a vision for the area. It seemed to be a driving point for the commission and the council and the workshops that we planned for this. It does not, like I said, in terms of water. Think of this 10, 15 years from now. It could be the only golf course in the state with AstroTurf fairways and greens. We're using very little water. We don't know what could happen in the future, but it's there in the plan. If it doesn't work out at the time of development, it could become a park or an open space area. This slide shows you a little bit more of the mixed-use village center, the more neighborhood commercial on the bottom floor with residential above. And then tying these areas together, the specific plan allows for public spaces which tie all of these together, the residential, the commercial, the industrial, ties them together with parks, bike paths, neighborhood plazas, and spaces, all requirements in the plan. As I mentioned, the business park and industrial wraps it up. This area is located south and also along the Interstate 15 freeway. Would allow for manufacturing, research and development firms, corporate campuses, or medical even a hospital, as was shown in the workshop slides. Tying all of this together, and as we're trying to show in these pictures, the quality of detail extensive design guidelines are proposed in the plan. And also, we tied the city's design guidelines to the plan as well, in case one of them changes and becomes more stringent in the future. They're tied together. These design guidelines look at not only the architecture of the buildings, but also the plazas, the streetscapes. We're proposing streets with landscape medians and separated bike paths, and just a wide variety of items in the plan. So before you tonight is the adoption of Ordinance 2253, and for the also proposed are some changes that we've made, some minor ones. There's on a page attached to it. All of those went to the commission except for one. That was at the Planning Commission hearing. A couple representatives from San Bernardino County spoke and had some concerns with the landfill and compatibility issues. So we've proposed additional language to be added to the plan, which would allow land use changes in that area when deemed necessary for compatibility's sake. And with that, we'll wrap it up. And to point out for the crowd, we have a few more copies of the land use plan and also some CDs here for you. And I know Bill wanted to go over the issue with the material recovery facilities.
All right, real quick, I've been asked to briefly hit on the MRF and the land use issues that have come up in the last couple of days. Basically, this is the bottom corner of the specific plan area. As you can see, the purple is light industrial. There's very little heavy industrial. In fact, a very small spot to the very top north of the plan area is heavy industrial. The rest of the area, or the rest of the specific plan, has been zoned for compatibility reasons and for the quality of development that we've discussed, compatibility with the housing and the higher grade of commercial, industrial, business park, light industrial business park type look that you saw on the previous slide. In doing so, we looked at these areas very carefully, especially areas that had existing users. It is never a good idea to plan according to what is. That's a map. That's not a plan. Anyone can prepare a map. What we did was plan. Unfortunately, when you're planning, some uses are not necessarily going to be appropriate in the long term in order to achieve the plan or the vision that you're looking for. These uses are called non-conforming uses. They can exist for years and years and decades. We have many throughout the city. They may not harm the surrounding development. They can even expand. A conditional use permit, the city allows through a conditional use permit a non-conforming use to expand. If it does not harm any of the surrounding uses, if it is thought best for the city to allow and or to expand, if things have changed, conditional use permits are granted for non-conforming uses all the time in the city. Such is the case with the MRF. The materials recycling facility that is located towards the left, I believe, of this purple area. The far left LI, thank you. And as you can see, to zone it heavy industrial just for the sake that it is a higher intense use would actually be spot zoning, or could be considered spot zoning, which is illegal. So then the next thing that you want to look at is the surrounding uses. So do you go to the next streets? Do you carve out that triangle? Do you make it the dark gray, whatever it is, make it heavy industrial? Actually, why? What you're looking at is what you want to achieve in the future. We chose to recommend that this whole area go light industrial. As far as the MRF goes, does that call their use into question? Not at all as far as its existing. Its existence can go on permanently. The city has no ability to stop a non-conforming use. Granting a conditional use permit to expand, as I stated, would require Planning Commission approval. If they did not grant it, it could be appealed to the council. So there are two shots there at getting an expansion approved for a non-conforming use such as this. The other issue I wanted to bring up in regards to this is, had we looked at this area because of the existing use and tried to wrap it around the MRF Center and make a larger area of heavy industrial, not only could it have negative impacts on the quality of development that you're planning or hoping to achieve in the area, but under heavy industrial, if we look at recent, as in the last 5 years, of our zoning and our approval processes, we would require a conditional use permit for a large recycling facility. We do now. Gone are the days where any use can come in and any heavy industrial use is permitted by right. There are a lot of issues involved in something of this sort or use of this sort. Everyone is different. So the very first issue is, or the note is that had we zoned that, or if the council chooses to zone that heavy industrial, is it going to be a permitted use or conditional use permit? Obviously, it'd be recommended to be a conditional use permit, which we've done citywide. Therefore, an expansion would still require the same conditional use permit and the same discretionary approval as it does now. The benefit of limiting this is not for the MRF's sake. We have no issue with the MRF. We've had no issues with the MRF. We don't today. The deal is this. We zone a large area to permit those type of uses as heavy and industrial uses. There's nothing to stop other similar uses from moving in there. And as you know, like uses gather, and they should, and as they build, that will decrease the opportunity to bring in, something, a business park or light industrial users around it. So again, this was not an attempt in any way to hold back or keep the MRF from expanding or run it out of town. But this is a way to contain, to a certain extent, that area so that other similar users don't go in. And as I stated, if we zoned it industrial, we would most likely require a conditional use permit similar to every other similar use in the city. Therefore, it would defeat the reason for changing it to heavy industrial to allow for the MRF, because we don't allow those by right anymore in the city, and we haven't for years. And that basically concludes the discussion on the MRF, and we're here and happy to answer any questions of anything we've discussed or anything else now or after.
Yes, we're going to open up the public hearing, and then afterwards, if there's any questions that come up. I'll now open up the public hearing on item number 3. I do have some cards here. I have Frank Sheets. Frank?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I'm Frank Sheets. I'm Communications and Governmental Affairs Manager for TXI Riverside Cement. We operate a major cement manufacturing facility close to the community of Oro Grande. In part, some of the raw materials that service that facility come from a quarry in Apple Valley we call the Shear Quarry, and those raw materials are transported across the area you're proposing to develop via a long-term haul road that has been there forever. I appreciate the attention that has been given in this plan to that haul road, and that you're trying to make accommodations to realign it or whatever, but I draw your attention to, and I may be wrong on this, but at least looking at this draft, page 3.3 of the draft, the haul road and the CMEX Railroad are planned to be put into close proximity to residential. We don't think that's appropriate. I can't imagine anybody having a new home in this area appreciate a 100-ton haul truck run behind their backyard. So I'd just like the planning department or whatever, I just wanted to raise that concern that we just don't think it's a good idea to be running heavy equipment in somebody's backyard. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Next, I have Jim Squire.
Good evening. I'm Jim Squire, Deputy Director for Advanced Planning with the County of San Bernardino. I was one of the ones that came for the Planning Commission and spoke, and I was glad to hear that there has been an amendment to the plan about the landfill issue, because we do think that residential and potential hospitals and things are really not compatible with a landfill. So I'm glad to hear that that accommodation has been made, and I'm assuming that that would mean that it would be a change to the specific plan since this has a zoning plan, as it was mentioned in the presentation. So I would assume that would result in a future date sometime. So I appreciate that consideration. The county also has some concerns about the mining issues, and this area in the county is one of the more important resources for mineral resources, and with a long, well-documented history going back in the 1880s, as you know, and major deposits of limestone and silica exist in reserves that may last into the next century. So mining is a very important interest to the county that we need to make sure that it's protected. Just like Mr. Sheets had mentioned just prior to me, the TXI has that route that needs to be considered for their operations. Also, there's a active CEMEX mine just on the northwest, I think it's just outside the plan, but right next door, it looks like, from what I could see on the map up there. So our concerns are that the mining interests are protected, that the access to the mines can be assured so that the operations can be continued, because it's a very important asset to the county and to the state's economy. So we appreciate consideration along those lines as well. Last thing that the county is interested in is a comment that we made last year when the general plan update was adopted, and that is issue of water. There's always water issues, and I realize that water comes up, and future projects will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis to ensure that adequate water is there. But it's always a concern that we make sure that adequate water is provided to all the projects, and it just seems like some of the zoning here will just add to an already bad or overdrawn aquifer situation. So with the accommodations that have been made by the planning department, I think our main concern is the mining interests and making sure that those are protected. Thank you very much.
Hold on, sir. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, you brought issues that I think everyone we're addressing. Certainly the water issue, that's state law. We have to do that anyway, so it'd be almost, I'm surprised you even bring it up. It's not something that we couldn't consider. It's something that we have to consider. But you made a comment that I was surprised. The Mojave Water Agency assured us that we are now at zero overdraft. So all of the planning going forward from this day forward is based on almost a zero depletion of the groundwater basin. And so, again, that is a non-issue. It's an issue that has been well addressed by the MWA with the cooperation of the communities around us as well. And I'm surprised that they're even coming up at this time from the county. When you stand up and say it, it sounds like there is an issue. I'd like to know what those specific issues are outside the general mandates that the law prescribes.
I can't speak to that exactly right now, and this is not the appropriate setting, but we can discuss that. I could set up a meeting with you and bring our water people and go from there. But like I said, our main concern is the mining interests. That they be protected.
Thank you, sir. We next have Frank Robinson.
Mayor, Council, this is my first time in your council chambers.
Don't get nervous.
They're absolutely beautiful. I am really impressed.
You're always welcome.
Well, thank you so much.
Anytime you want.
Thank you so much. My name is Frank Robinson. I am the town manager for the town of Apple Valley, and I'm here to express Apple Valley's concern that the proposed Desert Gateway specific plan places future operation and perhaps expansion of the Victor Valley Materials Recovery Facility, or better known as MRF, in jeopardy. We are particularly concerned about the potential negative financial impact to the equal partners in this venture, Victorville and Apple Valley. As you know, we are co-owners of the MRF. This specific plan raises questions that your partner, Apple Valley, does not believe have been considered. It is likely that this specific plan will ultimately force us as co-owners to either eliminate or relocate this facility due to its non-conforming use. If our concerns with regard to the MRF have been considered by Victorville, it appears that Apple Valley has been left out of the discussion, which is somewhat unfortunate. As equal owners, it seems most appropriate that the two partners should meet and carefully evaluate the future of the MRF with regard to the proposed specific plan. We both have significant investment in this facility, which provides a valuable service to our region. If this action eventually forces a relocation of the MRF, who's going to pay for that? Again, I'm here only to express Apple Valley's concern for the future of the MRF and to request that you give your partner an opportunity to join you in evaluating the specific plan's long-term impact on the future of the materials recovery facility before you move on this item tonight. I want to thank you very much for your attention and your consideration.
Mr. Robertson, sitting on the panel, the MRF panel and everything else, I've been assured that we have communicated with the city of Apple Valley on this issue. Whether it got to your planners or not, that I'm not sure, but somewhere in that list of communications on this topic, there's communication well in advance of this meeting sitting there for you to peruse. That aside, you're absolutely right. We are equal partners in this project, and we're not going to injure the MRF because not only is it a good, viable resource for us to recycle and use in this valley, but we have the potential to reach an 80%, as John indicated to me on a couple of occasions. So I'm excited about that, but we do have to help control that spot for the good of the greater growth area. And if ever there was a moment when we have to consider moving, not only are you and I, Jim and you, sitting side by side, figuring out where that other location might be, but we'll use those resources collectively to make that thing happen. Hopefully it not going to happen. We have a spot that is properly zoned now, and with careful consideration, we've got it boundaried by the river and the freeway and everything else. I mean, it's practically isolated from the rest of the northern general plan. So I think it's in an ideal location to continue operating the way it is there. But we do not want to begin to put a heavy industry location into that area and allow that to grow up to the northern end of that. So with those boundaries in place and everything that we've done, I think that we've adequately addressed those concerns. But check with some of the other departments, and I think you'll find that there is communication from the city to you.
Well, let me again close with the only concern we have is that as equal partners that we have an opportunity to sit down together and talk about the future of that entire program with regard to where it may go with the specific plan. That's the only concern that we have. We would really like to know that you as our partner are willing to sit down and talk with us in earnest about planning for that facility, because we are owners of that facility. So that's really the concern we wanted to express tonight.
Without a doubt, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Osborne.
Good evening, staff, members of the council. I was here on, seems like yesterday, November 18th, and spoke with the Planning Commission. And I raised some concerns regarding this plan, and they didn't answer any questions. I was invited to come up and meet with city staff, though, and go over a few things, which was enlightening. However, it seems like this plan kind of reminds me of my company website. It's kind of like an ongoing project of amendments and changes. This gentleman, the presentator here, said that they had gone through this with very fine detail. The plan doesn't even show my private airstrip on it. I've got 2 industrial buildings, and I've got several other industrial buildings that have been approved pursuant to a conditional use permit with the county. We're zoned IR, and which makes sense, and progress makes sense too. And a lot of the plan, it looks good. I don't know if it's timely or not with the way the economy is, but you've got to start somewhere. it doesn't seem to me that this plan has been thought all the way through. And I think there's some areas that need to be revisited. And my recommendation, and I pray tonight that you guys will table this and do a little more research on it and cover all your bases. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against item number 3?
Good evening. I hadn't planned to speak about anything. My name is Joe Vale. I live at 16993 Abbey Lane. Been there since 1975, actually 77, 78. And when we first moved in there, the land was zoned desert suburban. Without any notification that I ever saw, it was changed to, I forget what it is during that time. Anyway, I had to come back and ask for a special conditional use permit to have animals on my ranch, which I had to pay a lot of money to get, and donate the northern end of my property for city purposes, which is a little bit of an extortion type thing. But then I had to get a business permit for my tax business. And now you're changing the zoning again. What am I going to have to do now? Is that going to change everything because it's now being all zoned light industrial? Am I going to have to come back again for another conditional use permit to continue my business, another conditional permit to continue my animals? Yes or no?
We'll answer those questions.
Shall I answer them? Good. Thank you.
Anyone else for or against item number 3? I will now close the public hearing, and I would ask our planning director to respond to those questions.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Overall, most of those were addressed in the prior presentation. The one issue regarding the cement plants, obviously, has been our number one concern in the area to ensure that the uses are not only compatible, but that was our first and foremost interest, was to ensure their longevity, and that was the direction from this council. And I think Mr. Sheets agrees. We've been involved in meetings together on those. The intent was to reroute the street, and in the early stages, I know we paid close attention to rerouting that street, the road, with the best interest of the plants, as well as the surrounding land uses. In trying to locate exactly the street and the uses around it, it appears there are some multifamily uses and possibly single-family uses along that route. However, the elevation of the road versus the uses isn't drawn out in the plan. That's not what this plan is. When grading occurs, when projects occur, each of those projects will be approved through the entitlement process. It's not free game out there where anybody can go and build because there's zoning. Just like anywhere else in the city, they're going to have to come for entitlements. The streets will be carefully planned. I want to note in your additional language this evening, there's language that's been added, a proposal added, to allow the development director the discretion to administratively make minor changes in land use which may become necessary due to final alignments and designs of future interchanges, streets, haul routes, et cetera. I would like to propose this evening that what we'll do is, after adoption this evening, that our recommendation for approval includes with this, that I will discretionarily alter some of the surrounding land uses without increasing the overall density of residential or the overall trips surrounding the route currently, and then as development comes in, we will take even more precaution with that route to ensure that the document that is printed after this draft will have compatible land uses along that route. So ACOM and the city will work together to ensure that's done on the next copy that you see. If adopted tonight, it'll be in the final copy using this under our discretion. The other change I would like to recommend in our motion this evening is just an alteration to the last condition, which we've noted. It states to add language to allow the development director the discretion to administratively make land use changes which may become necessary to ensure compatibility with the landfill. I would like to recommend that we scratch with the landfill and change it, the discretion to make minor land use changes which may become necessary to ensure compatibility, period. And that way, we can take care of this as well as the landfill or any other issues such as the runway issue. And as stated before, as we did have a talk, Chris talked at length with Mr. Osborne, and I think hopefully covered most of the issues. Just to answer the question of why as I stated earlier, basically everything that's out there right now is on an aerial. It's not on a plan. That is a map. So why the runway is not here today in this, in the plan is the building footprints that are out there, the other uses that are out there, the homes that are out there. They are not on this plan, nor are they on our city's land use plan. And so again, we have to look at this just as if it's the city's land use plan zoning map. This basically is part of the zoning map, and it's not going to show all of those details on here. I do want to again assure, though, everyone here that every use that goes on here is going to require some type of entitlement. So there will be a process where they will be coming before the commission and the council, or those permitted uses will be going through the building permit process and the city licensing process. So this is zoning just like anywhere else in the city. And as far as the change issue that was addressed, that it seems to be something that's evolving, that's what it is. That's what zoning is. This is the best shot we've had at actually planning for future development in a comprehensive manner in this city, we believe, to date. That doesn't mean it's the end all. That doesn't mean it's going to be tweaked over time. Long after I'm gone and others are gone, there's going to be other visions, other people. There's going to be new technology. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to change this over the next 25 to 50 years. And that's how long this plan is probably going to take for build out. It's probably going to be 25 to 50 years.
Questions?
The only thing I would request as a part of this approval process is that we do sit down with Apple Valley. They are a partner on the material recycling facility. Try to work through those issues. It sounds like there's an expansion that's going to happen at some point, or that there's a desire to have an expansion of that facility, and I think that the nature of any approval tonight ought to have that direction to staff to make sure that that occurs with Apple Valley, so that we can make sure that those issues are addressed.
I'm not sure if Joe Vale, his question was addressed regarding his property.
I'm sorry.
The animals.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? What the question was?
On the land use.
Do we have for the animals?
Joe has a permit, I guess, to have animals in his, on the,
No, they do, and I'm sorry, that was spoken to earlier. That's a that would most likely, without looking where your property is and knowing what it's going to be zoned, they will most likely become non-conforming uses, which mean they can continue to exist and be maintained for a certain amount of period. Currently, the code, I believe, states 20 years for non-compatibility uses, but this council, or the council of the City of Victorville, to our knowledge, has never called in the chips on a non-compatible use. There are numerous ones that are going on 30, 40, 50 years. A non-conforming use. I'm sorry, non-conforming use. So basically, it's guaranteed a life of 20 years, and more than likely, if things continue going as they have gone throughout the history of the city, even longer than that. For those uses. So there will not be a need to come in for more licenses or additional CUPs, conditional use permits. One note, if I may, to Councilman McEachran, we were corresponding with Burtec. We do have record, which I sent you, where we did send notice recently to the town of Apple Valley. I believe it was November 10th, for this hearing, and sent a CD also of the plan. We sent that to all local jurisdictions and all involved agencies. However, prior to that, I believe as far back as May 28, 2009, Chris met with both John Davis and Richard Crockett of Burtec. discussed everything, including the requirement for a conditional use permit for the expansion of the use. And then more recently, he spoke with Gary Kuntz from Burtech. So it was just that we weren't speaking interagency, I guess, as co-owners. In fact, until as recently as yesterday or the day before, individually, we weren't aware who owned what. There's a lot of parcels out there. We did not. We honestly weren't even aware of co-ownership with the city of Apple Valley for the MRF. We send our public notices according to assessor's records. We're sending them out to thousands of people, and we're looking at some of the large operations and did take the time to notify the operators. We, in fact, did not discuss this with the council, which is an owner also. So I just don't want them to feel that we shun them intentionally. We also did it to you, so it's even.
But I think there is a point there. There are co-owners of the facility, like Mike sits on that board. It's a facility that we both own, and we're not going to jeopardize that.
Absolutely, I think.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing, and before we take a vote, I would like to see if any of the council members have comments or questions.
I'm not sure I have any questions, Mayor Cavalier, but I would just like to make some points in response to the various folks who spoke. First, to the concerns raised by Frank Sheets, TXI, with regard to the Hall Road and any potential encroachment on the mining operations. We've talked about that before, and at least as one member of the council, I made my position very clear that we would do whatever was necessary to not in any way interfere with the Hall Road, your operations, or encroachment on the TXI mining operation. And I believe, based upon the materials that I've read in the presentation here tonight, that our staff has in fact tried to incorporate the measures that would hopefully give you and your company a sense of security. We have a long history with the mining industry, with both TXI and now CEMEX, and you're a vital part of our local economy, and we would be the last unit of government to knowingly do anything that would place those operations in jeopardy. As to the comment from the gentleman from the county, I'm not sure what he meant when he made reference to the landfill comment. If the suggestion is that somehow we have agreed as a city to support in perpetuity the expansion of the existing landfill, I just want to go on record as one member of this council. I don't agree with that. Landfill is there. It was properly sited at a time when there was no growth or expansion to make anybody concerned. And we do have to find a way to coexist with the existing landfill and some reasonable expansion until other methodologies and technology and locations can be developed. The footprint for that landfill, if we don't do something about it now, will result in 5 of those big dumps in the city of Victorville's backyard, right along the premier commercial development area of I-15. It will be an eyesore. It'll harm the reputation not just of the city of Victorville, but of the entire Victor Valley. And so I would hope that the folks in the county responsible for landfills and land use planning would work with the city to identify where suitable landfill expansions can be sited and developed. If the plan is to do everything possible to not only keep the existing landfill operational, but to expand it to its ultimate footprint, which, as I understand the numbers, about 5 of those things, I think it would be one of the worst tragedies for the long-term welfare, economic welfare of not just Victorville, but I would suggest that it would be Apple Valley, who's on the east side of that freeway, and really the whole desert, because if we become known as the dump site for this county, we'll all pay a terrible price. I agree with Councilman Rothschild. We are as sensitive to water issues as any other agency in this desert. Gone to great lengths to do everything we can to be good stewards of the water. We have great faith in the Mojave Water Agency and its board and its staff, specifically Kirby Brill. But if the county is suggesting that this kind of a plan ought somehow not go forward because of a concern of water, then the county is condemning the desert, the Victor Valley, to a no-growth policy. Now, I don't believe that's the county intent, and I don't believe that that's what the county would embrace. But if you're going to raise water issues about Victorville's plans to develop, then presumably you're going to raise water concerns about every jurisdiction's plans to develop. And if that is the game plan, we ought to get it out on the table, start discussing it now in a rational and objective way. As to Frank Robinson and Apple Valley's comments, I mean, I don't know what to say. This thing has been in the planning stage for at least 3 years. There's been many, many column inches in the papers written about this. There's been discussions, at least on an informal basis. I mean, I can't tell you whether anybody made an absolute protocol perfect communication to the town of Apple Valley. If they didn't, I mean, that's unfortunate. But we have just as much at stake in that, Murph, as you do. And to not find a way to sit down and plan for the proper and short-term expansion of the MRF, but possibly in the long-term relocation of that MRF to a more practical site is something that good communications and good planning can solve. But I have the same concern with the MRF that I do with the landfill. If the vision or the view is that simply because the MRF is there, it's there in perpetuity, regardless of its impact on aesthetics and planning and good growth, then I think that's problematic. At least it's problematic for me. And lastly, as to Mr. Osborne's comments, I've been here as long, I guess, as that airstrip has been here, and I do not see anything in the plans that would distract from the continued operation of that airstrip, private airstrip. And I would simply say that I will ask our planners to take a look at that, and I would like to know if there's anything in the plan that would impact on the continued existence of that private airstrip. I don't see it in the materials that I've read, but I think we owe it to Mr. Osborne. He's been here a long time, and his father before him. And so I would want to try to provide the same type of comfort level on the private airstrip to Mr. Osborne as we're trying to provide to the cement industry in TXI and CEMEX. But I am not prepared to delay the implementation of this plan. It's 3 years in the making. It's had substantial public hearing review at the Planning Commission level. We've had very, very sophisticated planners involved in helping the city get through this. It's before us on a unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission after extensive hearings. And while I recognize that it's just a plan, it's not perfect, and it may take some tweaking over time, to delay it, in my opinion, would be not in the city's best interest.
First of all, I'd like to certainly echo Terry's comments. There isn't anything he said just now that I don't agree with. I'd like to expand on the TXI just for a minute. You know, if there ever was a base industry job or base industry in this valley, it's the mining industry. They predate railroads even, for that matter, for God's sakes. they can be here without anything. So once they're here and those people that work in those mines and those facilities are here, then the community grows up around it, and a lot of other things begin to happen. So if ever there was a root-based industry that identifies the Victor Valley, it would be the mining industry. And I assure you, from my point of view, I'll make sure that TXI is very comfortable where they are working not only with the city but the county as well. So I'll support any changes we need to do through the discretion that we're going to work into that amendment that Bill's asked for. With respect to the landfill issue, that one, I hope everybody recognizes this isn't just a blighted spot on a potentially great development idea. There's something far more dynamic that's been going on long before we began to expand north here in Victorville, and that is the idea that technology has changed. It has changed in recent years here. Not only do our recycling potential reaches very high levels with the things that we're beginning to do, but the way you produce the products themselves are changing. And the way that we deal with the byproducts, the discharge, it's not just dropping in a landfill anymore. I mean, the waste to energy is another concept. There's a multitude of ways you could take that hill down. But if you sit in the county bureaucracy and they feel that the only way to do it is to take everybody's garbage in the traditional way and dump it in one spot, guess where they plan to dump it? Up and down the 15. And whether you live in Apple Valley, Hesperia, or Atlanta, if you're any place in the Victor Valley, you'd be very upset if that's the game plan for the county. I think they are far smarter people than that, and they know better. And all you have to do is sit down and work with us, and we'll get something worked out. And we certainly, with respect to my position on the waste board and the MRF board, if you will, nothing's going to happen without Apple Valley and sitting together and both of us putting our signatures to that document. There's two signatures that have to happen. It can't be one. There's not a majority in one out of two. So that's the end of that. There's no threat to the MRF. So with that, I strongly support this. I think we've put a lot of work into this. The Desert Express is coming. You know, 4 years ago, I'd give you a 20/80 chance that it probably would happen. There's some good serious money there, but a lot of stuff needed to happen. 2 years ago, I would give you about a 50-50 chance that the Desert Express from Las Vegas to Victorville is coming. As we're sitting here today, I give you a 90-10 chance that the Desert Express not only is coming, but will turn the corner and run down the E220. They'll preserve a corridor right down the middle of that brand new freeway to the Palmdale-Lancaster area. So we've got a train that's on the roll. It's coming. It's got some serious investors there with billions in their pocket. Unfortunately, they're not waiting for the TARP funds or any help from the federal government. They got their own business model, and it will be the first high-speed rail in the interstate high-speed rail in the United States. The very first one on the East Coast that's interstate, but this will be the first one crossing state lines and hooking into a major high-speed rail system in the California system as well. It's an incredible project. We're at the front end of it, and Victorville was blessed to be at a nexus point to that rail system and the first leg from Las Vegas to Victorville. Everybody should be proud. As Husing said, thousands of jobs are coming off of that project. It will be an incredible. Look at the news stories when some major company puts 100 jobs out there and 10,000 people are in line to get those jobs. And I think at the Dr. Pepper plant out there, somebody said they had 1,500 people applying just for the forklift job alone. How about putting down thousands of jobs and opening up that job market? It's an incredible opportunity. The good news is there. Unfortunately, our local newspaper doesn't choose to share a lot of that with you. And I'll have some more comments on that later this evening on my council comment section. But with respect to the specific plan, I support it. I mean, general plan amendment, I support it.
And then would like to entertain a motion. We would read the ordinance first.
An ordinance of the City of Victorville approving PLN 09-00045 Desert Gateway Specific Plan, City of Victorville.
I'll move introduction of the ordinance.
That along with the planning director's recommendations?
All of the planning director suggested and requested amendments.
Second.
Item number 4 is consent calendar.
Move for, second.
I do have someone that wanted to speak on the consent calendar, and that's Norm Miller.
Mayor, council members, I just had a question on item F on the consent calendar. And this is the requirements for repowering the diesel engine item or machinery that you have. A couple questions are, how many of these engines are going to have to be programmed or retrofitted? And what's the average cost of this? It looks like it's running between $25,000 and $30,000 each. My concern on this is the fact that I've read, I guess, in the paper and that there may be that the state's just going a little bit too far with this, and that they're going to hurt a lot of companies, not only cities and counties and private industry and that, and there's a possibility this may be curtailed for a while. And I'm just wondering, have we gone forward with this? Are we spending the money now, or are you just approving it to be spent in the future? Because I think we should wait as long as we can to get this done.
Specifically on the number that it need to be converted, our Public Works Director will get back with you on that. But Mike did have a comment on that.
Yeah, Mr. Miller, you are bringing up a legitimate point, and it's one that I've started working on myself. As a matter of fact, we have our local air quality board also has a member that's on the state board. I've communicated with her in the last few weeks about this global warming AB 32, and I indicated that the City Council of Victorville just signed off on $100,000 worth of improvements of equipment that we ought not to have done at this time under AB 32, the global warming. And also Joanne had shared that even her business was being affected to some extent. I said, these are mandates coming down at us. They're not needed. They're unnecessary, and the economy is hurting us. We'd like you to go back up to Sacramento and say, put a hold on all of these regulations coming down in that area. So we're beginning that process. In January, the Air Quality District will discuss it, and then I'm going to ask that we approach the State Air Resources Board, State Board, about influencing the state legislature to put a hold on it. And then I know Senator Runner is very supportive of this activity. He says anything that he can do from his office as well. So it's something that it's hitting every business across the state and every city and community across the state, and it's unnecessary, and it's huge numbers. 100,000 for this city right now, that's an incredible amount of money. I'd like to have it in our bank account instead of spending it on equipment that we don't need.
Well, that's why I just want to see that, if you don't have to do it immediately, let's wait until we can see what's going to happen.
Well, then they find us come January 1st. That's the problem.
We lose no matter what then.
We need the legislature to act and act quickly.
Thank you. Item number 5 is a request to amend the existing service provider agreement with Ximena Zambrano for an additional $40,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
Item number 6, request to approve an amendment to the service provider agreement between the City of Victorville and RBF Consulting for project management for the High Desert Corridor project, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Move for approval.
Second.
Number 7, request to approve resolution number 09103, entitled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville revising the sick leave cash-out benefit for employees and amending the personnel rules. Mr. Cox?
Mr. Mayor and Council, we, in order to cut back as far as we could, we cut back salaries and benefits in the last few months. We've also gone through reorganization and layoff. And we looked at the sick leave cash out and the amount of accumulated sick leave that individuals can have and how that can be used. We indicated to the City Council during that time that we would be coming back with a revision on how this was to occur and how it would relate to the cash out of sick leave upon retirement or resignation. And what we believe that we have preserved this for the benefit of the employees. At the same time, it's a substantial savings to the city in the long run, and I want to ask Doug to speak on this because he spent quite a bit of time going through the sick leave, the personnel rules, running through actually using different employees and working out whether it hurt or helped in the overall benefit or the detriment of the employees. And we're both satisfied with the results, but I'd ask Doug Robertson to speak on this matter just briefly.
Yeah, this matter leaves the benefit largely unchanged, which we've had numerous positive comments from employees. But what it does is it simplifies the process. I'll attempt an example. It's fairly complicated, though. I apologize. What would happen with sick leave previously was annually, as employees received some sort of pay raise, be it a merit increase or a promotion, the sick leave hours were then converted into dollars and then reconverted back into hours each January 1st, and it caused quite a bit of confusion and staff time trying to explain what had happened and follow-up work. So what this policy would do, the major change of this policy, well, hang on, let me finish the analogy. Let's say that you had 100 hours of sick leave, and it was worth, say, $1,000. You earned $10 an hour. If you got a 5% pay raise, your hourly rate then went up by 5%. But in order to compensate so that you didn't gain significant dollars as you promoted, as your pay went up, your number of sick hours would actually go down by 5%. The dollar amount would remain the same, but the number of hours you had would actually go down by 5% in order to offset that. It was a complicated formula. It got more complicated as changes occurred over the years to how many hours or what percentage of your time you could cash in upon retirement. So what this policy essentially does, the biggest part of it, is that it splits off the hours and the time, or the hours and the dollars separately, so that the dollars are tracked, so that if you earned $100 when you made $10 an hour, then you still have $100, but you also still have 10 hours. So that, let's say that the janitor became the city manager over time and was making, say, $100 an hour, the equivalent sick time would then only be 1 hour. So what we've done is we've split that off so that those employees would still have the 10 hours, but they would still be compensated at the dollars that they earned it. And hopefully this simplifies everything. We also looked at possibly a reduction or elimination of the sick leave cash payout altogether, but quite frankly could not find a monetary benefit to the city in doing so. And it would be detrimental to the employees who have already taken across the board, anywhere from 10 to 20% cut in pay and benefits, depending on your benefit plans and things. So because the benefit monetarily wasn't there, we are recommending a policy that remains largely unchanged.
I'd like to point out one other item because there's been a question. This eliminates the 5% interest that's accrued to the account each year. One of the things we looked at is that when you're paying the employee for the sick leave or when you're putting it on the books at the rate of pay, this is July 1 through June 30. City Council adopts a budget July 1 that runs through June 30. City Council traditionally makes all the adjustments for the new rate of pay, cost of livings, or so on. And so the individual money already includes the cost of living. And why the 5% was added on to that, we don't really know, but it was kind of a double interest that the employee gained. Kind of a benefit to the employee, but it was unfair to the city, and we couldn't justify it, and that's why it was eliminated. The employee doesn't lose because they're accruing this July 1 through June 30 after they've received their either pay rate or whatever, including a merit increase if they're entitled to a merit increase. So to say that the city council granted a cost of living of fill in the blank, the employee received a merit increase sometime during the year, and then at the end of the year you added another 5%. Very unfair to the organization, benefit to the employee, but we never could figure out why it was there. That's, in all fairness to the employee, it's the right thing to do to eliminate that. It's a savings to the city, but we don't see that the employee is hurt by this because they still get the pay rate as they've earned it. There's nothing taken away from them.
And actually, you get reimbursed for the in terms of the money for the amount you were making at the time, for the wages you were making at the time you accrued that.
That's correct. A lot of other organizations track the hours. And so using the janitor to the city manager example, if the janitor is making $10 an hour, eventually promotes to the city manager, the 10 hours that he earned as a janitor is now paid out at $100 an hour. The policy that got confusing attempted to, and did, prevent that from happening. It kept the dollars essentially the same. But this split of the hours from the dollars allows that employee to keep those hours to be used, but to not gain financially through that process, but not be hurt either.
Okay. We have a motion to approve item 7.
Move for approval.
Second. Item number 8 is report or presentation from city council members. I would just like to thank everyone, all our staff, our employees, everyone that's worked so hard this year. We started the year with some big challenges, and we're not completely through with everything, but we're here. We're at the end of the year, and we're still afloat and running our services and providing those very critical services, important services such as fire and police and the other services that are important to the community. So we hung together. We lost some of our friends on the way, but you know, those sort of things, that's what a business does. When it gets tough, you have to make those hard decisions, and we did. So I would just like to thank everyone for their hard work, and the city council for working together to resolve those major challenges that we had at the end of the year. And we have another year ahead of us, and hopefully by next year, and at the end of next year, we'll be in good shape again. And Merry Christmas to everyone, and Happy New Year. Again, I would invite the council members for comments.
I'll just echo that. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
I third it, and did a good job tonight.
I'm going to take this opportunity to give the community some information they didn't have by reading the Daily Press. The RICO case against us was dismissed, and the Daily Press should have known that. Matter of fact, the person, I'll defer to the city attorney. Is it true that in this country that you have a constitutional right to sue a ham sandwich if you'd like?
As a matter of fact, that's pretty much the case. And as a matter of fact, it never was a RICO case. It was only an allegation in a bankruptcy proceeding by an individual that's now been deemed a vexatious litigant. So it gives you some indication of
He took the other part of
merit or lack thereof of such a claim.
I even got the spelling of vexatious from Mr. Caldwell here to make sure I had it right. Vexatious litigant. That's what that person had. I mean, you have to lose a lot, and it has to be totally off the wall before the courts even do that to an individual. But that's what happened to this person. And yet, if you read the newspapers today, that's an unfortunate, because people back in New York or someplace else that are doing some serious business with this community, they go to the internet. I mean, the Daily Press, anybody on the internet, I mean, it's all worldwide. It's unfortunate. You have a responsibility to report properly. And it begs the question as to why they do what they do for these salacious headlines, but they are hurting not only the city of Victorville, but the entire Victor Valley when we try to promote business and development here, and we get our local newspaper doing these off-the-wall comments. It's crazy.
Well, I would agree with the compliments to our staff. It has been a tough year, but everybody's labored in the vineyards to make it work, and we are blessed as a city to have the dedicated folks that we have. I would have to agree with Councilman Rothschild's comments about the comment. I mean, they publish the fact that the RICO case against the city was dismissed in their own paper, and yet they raise it as though it's something brand new, and as our city attorney said, it was not a RICO case. Why they would go to that length to cause that amount of hate and discontent is just. The only other thing I have to report is I attended a breakfast or a lunch on Saturday of the parade. I was asked to welcome a contingent of, a delegation actually, of 16 potential investors from China, and the delegation was headed by two very high-level government officials. And in response to the question of some about why the lunch was held at the Grumpy Golfer, I would encourage the people who have that question to ask the people who arranged for the lunch. Luncheon was not a city function. We had nothing to do with it other than, in my case, to go and welcome 16 potential investors to this city. In my almost 40 years on the council, I don't know how many times I've gone to breakfast, lunch, dinners, and whatever to tell people about our city and to welcome them to this city and to encourage them to look positively at the opportunities in the city of Victorville. And for those who wish to make that something dirty and bad, I reject it. I completely reject it. That's my report.
End of the meeting. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.